Your Worship, members of council, we are now live.
Good evening. Welcome to the City of Swift Current Council meeting of Monday, December 14th, 2020. We will move through this meeting with the speaking order as follows. Councillor Pluis, Councillor Friesen, Councillor Christensen, Councillor Wall, Councillor Schweitzer, and finally, Councillor Tuntlin-Weeb. Let us begin. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda that was circulated to us by Madam Clerk late last week. Councillor Pluis.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll be happy to move the adoption of the agenda that was circulated.
Thank you. I'll get this right yet. And a seconder, please.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Friesen. Now, are there any questions or comments? We will go through the list, starting with Councillor Pluis.
Nothing for me, thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Christensen.
Nothing for me.
Councillor Wall.
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Councillor Schweitzer.
Nothing for me, Your Worship.
And finally, Councillor Tuntlin-Weeb.
Nothing for me.
Moved by Councillor Pluis and seconded by Councillor Friesen. All those in favor? Thank you. This motion has passed. Next, I will be looking for a motion to adopt the minutes of the November 30th, 2020 councillor meeting. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Schweitzer.
Your Worship, I move that we adopt the minutes of the council meeting November 30th, 2020.
And a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Tuntlin-Weeb. These minutes were provided to us by Madam Clerk last week. Are there any questions or comments? I will again move through the speaking order. Councillor Pluis.
Nope, look good to me, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Friesen.
Everything looks good, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Christensen.
Nothing, Your Worship.
Councillor Wall.
Nothing to Your Worship.
Councillor Schweitzer.
All good here, Your Worship.
And Councillor Tuntlin-Weeb.
All good here too.
Moved by Councillor Schweitzer and seconded by Councillor Tuntlin-Weeb. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion has passed. We do not have any proclamations tonight on the agenda, so we will move straight into delegations. I would like to welcome Sergeant Kelly Guider and Tony Curti of the Swift Current City RCMP. Councillor Guider is here to bring forth the community policing report. Go right ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This policing report covers from September 1st until November 30th. Yourself and the councillors have received some stats every month, but I'm just going to lump them all into the 3-month period and go through them. So in this time period, we had 1,683 files. And that was an increase of only 125 files over the previous year and a slightly higher increase over 2 years ago. But I wanted to bring to your attention that 104 charges related period. And last year in the same time period, it was it was 391. So a big increase came in charges. And upon further examination, it turns out that most of those offenses were traffic related. In this 3-month period, of the 504 charges laid, 341 were actually traffic offenses. And that's comparable, or it's quite high in comparison to 232 last year. So we've seen an increase of 109. So over this 3-month period, I then looked at the impaired driving charges, and we laid 10 charges in this period, comparable to 12 here and 11 the previous year. So comparable numbers. I can tell you that I think we've had more charges per file, in that in previous years, we've had a higher number of complaints coming in of impaired drivers, but they still resulted in around the same amount of arrests and charges. The next category I looked at were provincial statutes, which could include alcohol, gaming regulation, mental health, all all other provincial statutes kind of combined. And we see 127 cases in this year's 3-month period that we looked at. And that was significantly lower than 168 from last year, or even 145 in 2018. The number of charges laid in those categories was still similar. We had 20 charges laid as opposed to 17 last year or 16 in the previous year. Our drug cases, specifically talk about the drug trafficking cases first. This year, in that time period, we've laid 10 drug trafficking charges. Or sorry, we've had 10 cases with 4 charges laid. And it was last year that we had 13 cases with 10 charges laid. So we've seen a decline in the number of charges for trafficking hard drugs in our community over this period. But unfortunately, I think in the next quarter, you're going to hear different results from us, because we had a couple of successful search warrants here in early December already that they don't make up these numbers yet. As far as drug possession charges, we laid 2 charges in this period as opposed to 4 charges last year. And we had a total of 8 different cases we were looking into drug possession over this same 3-month time period. I don't know if I've know Councillor Pluis and Councillor Friesen have heard me talk before about some of the other aspects of policing that I'm curious about. And one of those is the Youth Drug Detoxification and Stabilization Act. It'd be 3 or 4 years ago where we saw a real spike in the need and the use of this Saskatchewan Act that allows police to take a young person into custody and basically force them into detoxification. A number of years ago, we were seeing it quite regularly. And over the last 2 years, we've seen a great decrease. So in this 3-month period, we only utilized this act once, which is a pretty good indicator that we don't have, let's say, the same need that we did 3 or 4 years ago. Last year in the same time period was also a really good fall for us, where we didn't use it once. Another area that we do is the violent threat risk assessment. Constable Curdy, he's going to speak in a moment, but he's a full-time school liaison officer and go to Vitra files in the city. These files generated through the school system. And of course, we know that from March on of 2020, the whole outlook and what's been happening with the school is, once the school's closed, obviously we saw a great reduction. But this year in September, when school started up again, first 3 months, we only saw 1 call where we looked at a violent threat risk assessment for a youth in a school. And on the first instance, that file was dealt with, and it was realized that it did not have to go through the Vitra process, which can be very involved, yes. But in this case, it was an isolated incident. It did not meet the threshold to do a full-scale Vitra, which was really good. So in this year's 3-month period, we only had 1, and last year even we had 5 in the same period. Next thing I can mention, there's a lot of work that goes into our drug trafficking organized crime files. And in the 3-month period, in reviewing some of our cases, I see that we've done 5 judicial authorizations for search warrants into cell phones. And we get a lot of information back in regards to the drug trade, who's involved, what the connections are, how many drugs are being moved, where the drugs are coming in from. So those warrants are really important. And we don't highlight those in the other stats because oftentimes they support charges that were already laid. But there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it helps with the prosecution to hold the people who are bringing the poison into our community accountable. Aside from the 5 cells, we also had warrants issued for 3 residences within Swift Current in that time period. And in all 3 search warrants for residents, we were able to obtain drug seizures, weapons, and cash out of all of the residences. So pretty good numbers at that point. And the other thing I should transition into for yourself and the counselors is a little bit of an update, I guess, on our staffing levels. I think most of you know that I'm currently just acting in the command here, that the staff sergeant is a process to replace Gary Hodges is still taking place. and the National Promotions Unit is looking after that. So I know that it's progressed. I know that they have a group of names, and I suspect that our line officer will be through South City once they have a pool of individuals to choose from for the new position. So that's, I'm excited about that. I think it'll be early in the new year when we're going to hear just who's going to be coming in to take command here. In November, we received a transfer constable, Corey Winslow, who's actually lived in the community for a number of years already, but he was previously on the forensic ident unit, and we're really thankful. He's been able to transfer down and join our team here on City Detachment. So Corey is one of our newest constables. And then in late November, we had Corporal Leah Johnson and her husband, Chris Johnson, arrive from New Brunswick. And their transfer announced last year at this time. And so we're really excited to be able to make the move and get out here. And today was their first day in the detachment. They've gotten their kids settled in school, they've gotten their stuff unpacked, and now they've joined the team here. So we're pretty excited about that. As far as the policing report, that's it from me. I'm going to turn it over to Constable Curdy soon, school liaison update. But before I do, does anybody have any questions for me on the policing report?
Kelly, if you could, I understand Gary is still in the community. He's just no longer in charge down at the city detachment. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, what he did was he moved, it was previously occupied by Dean Bridle. And Dean, the position up
Nice name, by the
is
way.
a district. It's spelled if I agree. Yeah, so Dean transferred, he went up to La Ronge to take command up there, and that left an opportunity for Gary to basically move over to a different office. He ran the city here successfully for 6 years, just over 6 years, and the division asked him basically to take a position where he's going to own all of the detachments in the Southwest. So right now, I'm lucky and I'm still my supervisor. I still answer directly to Gary, but all the commanders in the whole Southwest also answer to Gary. He's our first point of contact for support, and he kind of organizes us, everything for us here in the Southwest. So I'm really thankful that Gary Ashley community can still draw upon this knowledge daily.
Thank you. I think we're going to allow Tony Curdy to give his presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions after that, if that's okay.
Yes, Your Worship, that works. Hold on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I have some notes here. I want to just keep me on task here, so hopefully I don't go too long in the tooth for you guys. I'm going to just give you a quick introduction here of myself, because I think some people don't know me, and I think most of you do. So came from a military family. My dad was in for 31 years in the Navy, or sorry, 36 years in the Navy. My brother was in 31 years, and myself, I did 18 years combined full-time and part-time or reserve Navy also. So from there, I went into the RCMP right off the Navy base, and I went to Kamsack for my first posting for 5 years. I went to Rosetown for 6 years, and then now I've been in Swift Current for 7. Starting off in general duty, then I went to general investigation section, and then I've been as a school liaison officer, a school resource officer. Since I've started in the school, I've also, since I started in Swift Current, I've been part of a committee called the Drug Strategy Action Committee, or before it was called the Drug Task Force. And so we're, you know, if you're not really familiar with our organization, it's a committee comprised of a number of organizations, ranging from myself, RCMP, mental health, addictions, city council, community members, and we're all driven just to basically with the same passion to eliminate substance abuse and misuse in the community. So our main mission is to engage the community in strategy that focuses on prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and community justice. I've been a co-chair for that committee for 7 years now that I've been here. So, and so far we're having a lot of success. This last year we've kind of rebranded and we're taking on a new direction. So hopefully it'll be successful in the new year as well as it has been in the past. So my first time, my first years or a year and a half in the school, I was heavily involved in pretty much everything I could. I was the assistant coach for the wrestling team and took a number of guys to the provincials, and it was time of my life so far. This year, obviously not, but I had did a lot of online, oh no, not online, a lot of talks with drug and alcohol abuse and cyber abuse, and and I had I had a guest speaker who was just phenomenal, and she just rocked it out. But so we've been doing a little bit of that actually at the Great Plains College. So I still get a few out, but it's just the restrictions. It's kind of hard to get these presentations through the door. So we're still trying. I'm actually working currently with Mad Canada to do a online course in the comp right now. So it'll be one of those virtual courses, and that'll be starting in January. Kelly already talked about the VITRAs and the Youth Talk warrant here, but VITRAs really they were a very large component of my first year, and they were a monster. There was several that would just went on, and they're a lot of work, and they're necessary. They have a function, but that in the last last year and a year and a half, it's just dropped off, and I can't really put my finger on why, but I'm hoping it's through the connections that I'm making with the kids that it's just I'm trying to be as positive. Maybe it's just luck or timing, but I'm hoping that's the reason. But anyway, it's working. Whatever's happening, it's working. The last year here, I went through. I did an online training course, the National Youth Officer Training out of Ottawa, and it's kind of opened the doors to a lot of kind of tools I can use to assist my job at the comp. And most recently, like I said before, I'm going to be taking that online course through MAD, and that's partly and partial with the training I took in from Ottawa. So so far it's paying off. This year it's been challenging. So in last year it wasn't as bad because you could walk up to kids in the hallway and go into the cafeteria and be a wrestling coach and you were engaged. But this year was completely different. You couldn't talk to the kids in the hallways. They just went right to their classrooms. So my challenge was, how do I engage with the youth? And that's my main job. That's what I want to do. I'm trying to build trust and respect, and that's my main goal. So how do I do that from the outside looking in? So I approached most of the teachers, or all of them, I think, at one point, and asked if I could come into the classrooms at will, and they said they had no problem. So I hop into classes, and I either take part of the class itself, either whatever they're working on that day. If the teacher allows it, I'm part of their class. I'm participating in class discussions. I'm learning right from the ground up, from grade 9 to grade 12, history all over again. It's kind of fun. I like history, so math not so much. But anyway, I got my hand up just like everybody else, and it's from that angle that I get to see a different side of the kids. When you walk in the hallways, you see the kids and they go into the classrooms, and you don't really know too much about them. But when you're in the classrooms, you see the kids, the ones that are putting their hands up, the ones that are engaged, the ones that are answering all the questions. And then there's those silent few that sit there and stare at the wall. And those are the ones I'm really interested in. Those ones I can see now. I never saw them before, but I can tell you what, I relate to those kids that are staring at the wall, because that kid was me. So I totally relate. And those ones are on my radar, and not for a bad reason, just that they need connection. They need to know that I'm there for them. And when I'm in their classrooms, that's what they get. They get to see that I'm in the pits with them. And it's bringing on a whole different year than I really expected, because just walking the hallways before, I said, you have to know the kids, but I'm really on their level now, and so it's way better. I think it's just incredible. What else am I going to see here? Yeah, and even that, with the forming new alliances with the kids that way, I'm actually making friends with the teachers. Like a lot of them, actually, I'm just becoming friends with them just on a personal level, just because I'm in their classrooms and I'm learning about them, they're learning about me, and it's just it's really kind of opened a whole new set of doors for me. Just starting on to a new committee here. Just last week I was asked to join a committee. It's called the PLC, the Professional Learning Committee, and basically the goal for this committee is primarily to increase and improve the mental health and physical health of the kids in the school. So it's really kind of it's just the infant stage for me right now, but we're going to introduce some programs and some moderate changes with the school administration, and just to get the kids just in a more healthier mindset moving into the future. So yeah, in the future, yeah. So the future is, I'm hoping we'll get back to normal. I hope we'll go back to wrestling. I hope I get that Mad Canada presentation, and hope we do a lot more of those. And that's where I see myself going in the future. But so far this year has been different and really way better than I thought, actually. And that's it for me. If you have any questions.
Well, thank you both Sergeant Guider and Constable Curty. We appreciate the information, and we appreciate you sharing with us your thoughts tonight. Now I'm going to open the floor again for questions or comments, and I'm going to start with Councillor Pluis. Do you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Constable Curty, Sergeant Guider, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Always look forward to hearing from you guys. First and foremost, please extend from our community a warm welcome to the Johnsons. I actually had an opportunity to meet them in another professional capacity, so they seem like a real great couple, and I'm very glad that they're moving to our community. Also, I didn't hear about Constable Winslow, but I'm happy to hear that he's found a spot within City Detachment as well. For the rest of my fellow councillors, we've been getting these briefings for most of my time on council. I always look forward to hearing them, and one thing to keep in mind is, these are stats that you try to find some trends in, and Sergeant Guider always does review those trends with us a little bit. But one of the things that I'm kind of interested in knowing a little bit more about is whether you guys see any trends that are sort of related specifically to COVID. With people being cooped up, maybe, mental health, maybe not quite as strong as it has been in past years. I guess I'm just wondering if you guys see things from your perspective, other effects of living in a COVID world that maybe we could be aware of as well, and could help to inform some of our decision making as a council.
Well, the numbers for mental health calls through the 3-month period have actually gone down. Over the 3 months, last year we were at 57, and this year we're at 42. So it's fairly significant, but I think it's almost timing. I believe at the last city council meeting that I spoke at in September, the numbers are actually up, right? If you recall, I believe Councillor Friesen brought that to my attention as well, and had some questions about it. We haven't noticed any particular spikes in any crime that we can relate to COVID. I think that some of the decreases that we've had are attributable to it. Most recently, over the last month, with bars and liquor stores having to close early. We also see, with the reduced amount of seating at a table in some of these outlets, lounges, bars, it's definitely played a factor in how many calls perhaps that we get that are related to alcohol use late at night. Those numbers have certainly gone down. The amount of specific, going back to mental health act calls, we have a certain segment of the population that are certainly, I'm sure, affected by the COVID scenarios, but I don't believe that those numbers are coming into our office. I think there's a lot of really good resources, specifically in the city of Swift Current. And I know that now with 2-in-1 Saskatchewan really being rolled out and coming into effect and being publicly broadcast, so that the individuals within not just the city, but our outside communities are able to access those resources more readily. That's a big help. I haven't talked to the staff at Envision, but I know that they're busy over there as well. And it's been remarkable that I think that we're doing as well as we are, considering what everybody's going through.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think what I was looking at was sort of the trends in decreasing, with people having to stay home a little bit more, whether that was having an effect or not. But thanks for your explanation. Just also wanted to say, to Constable Curty, I know what a great job he does in the school system, and the relationship that he has with the youth in the schools, and don't sell yourself short. I know you're a humble guy, but I think your involvement in the community, particularly in the school community, probably has had a big effect on some of the decreases that you've seen there. So just wanted to lend you that encouragement that we see what you're doing. We appreciate it very much, and And particularly, we appreciate how you're adapting your service to today's world and today's school, where it's just flat out different. So keep up the good work, guys. Thanks so much for your presentation. Stay safe.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. Councillor Friesen, do you have any questions or comments, please?
Thanks, Your Worship. Well, thanks for your presentation. As always, it's informative just to get to hear what's happening in your world. I was interested in your discussion regarding the drug enforcement and some of the drug charges and so on. And am I correct in taking away that perhaps the drug situation is not as critical as it was in Swift Current? Or just maybe you can comment a little bit more on that and how you see it going over the long term, whether we're making any progress.
I think our measured progress is that it hasn't gotten worse, at least in our eyes. There were some investigations over the last year that showed that there were some individuals who were connected to organized crime that were moving into the community to sell their drugs. Because of the hard work of the GIS team and some of the input as well from some of the general duty members, we were able to make an arrest, I believe it was early June, of an individual that was here from Alberta that was set up with no criminal record. It was somebody who was basically just hired by the group to come here and distribute their poison. And we were able to bring that person into custody. Charges are still pending before the court. And because of what we learned out of the search warrant at the individual's vehicle and their property, we gained a lot of information. And hopefully that hard work and those charges have kind of stopped that group from wanting to continue to set up here. Now, anytime you have individuals who are addicted, there's going to be a market. So regardless of how hard my staff works, we're still going to have people who are going to bring that poison in because there's money to be made. And I don't think that it's gotten worse. So I think that that's a huge plus, because a lot of the other cities in Saskatchewan have seen what can happen when you have some of these out of province organized groups moving in. They're very hard to track. It'll be extremely difficult in the future if they get set up, because they switch out their distributors, they switch out vehicles, and it becomes a really lengthy, hard investigation. And our people suffer. So what we're thankful for right now is I think we've got a good understanding of where the drugs are coming from, who is doing the selling, and we're working those cases. And one by one, we're getting those individuals charged. Keeping in mind that with Tony's good work and the DSAC committee, we're trying to reduce the need here for those drugs as well. And it has to be both sides. Enforcement is certainly not the sole answer, but we definitely want people being scared to come here and try and sell those drugs.
Well, thank you for that. I know that seems to be a very common concern, just from the residents in general. They hear stories or they know of people that are addicted or whatever. So the whole drug scene is a big concern for myself, but I think for a lot of the residents. So thanks for all the hard work, and I wish you well as you continue to put these guys in jail.
I'll pass it on to the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Christensen, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just want to thank the gentleman for coming and sharing their time and all this information. It's very informative. Being new on council, I haven't received these reports before, and I found it very interesting. I'm glad to hear some of the numbers are trending down, but I'm just wondering, is there anything that's trending up that has you guys concerned that we should be paying attention to?
Well, we were concerned, or I was particularly, when COVID kind of crippled the economy and schools closed and As soon as you have a lot of factors coming into unemployment, economic trouble, sometimes if persons have addictions, if they're not working, those addictions can result in poor behavior, perhaps violence in the home. Taking all that into consideration, I was really worried in the spring that we were going to see a rise in domestic assaults. And we didn't at first, but over these last number of months, I feel that there's been a bit of an increase. Now, the assaults don't differentiate. Like when we run these statistics and provide them to you, they could be, a fight in the street, they could be a fight at the school, it could be any assortment of assaults. But I'm aware of the ones that are actually domestic related. And I feel that there has been a rise. And I don't know if it's a change in the economic status of certain individuals, families under hardship. As far as what can be done about it, I know our officers are well trained in making sure that we involve victim services. We want to surround those victims with support while still holding the offender accountable. So we've done that for years, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of continue with the support and level some of those numbers out. It's not acceptable at any point to have violence in a home. And that message has been very clear from my staff. But some families are really struggling, and there's a lot of supports that need to be in place. I'm going to mention the 211 Saskatchewan again, because that number alone has really improved the accessibility for treatment, for addiction, for violence counseling. There's just so many connections that can be made through that group. So we're really thankful that we have basically every officer now has a card that we can hand out as well to aid some of these people in finding the solutions for themselves too. Sorry, Councillor, does that answer the question?
Thank you very much, Sergeant Geider.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. Councillor Wall, do you have any questions or comments, please? You're on mute, Councillor Wall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. This is the first time I've seen this for a long time. I have a couple of comments. First of all, I would like to ask Constable Curtis, do you just work at the comp school, or do you work at the middle schools as well?
I primarily work at the comp, but I've had a lot of requests from all the other schools to do presentations. When the general duty guys are busy, I have no problem filling in and taking part and doing what I can. I visit the schools on occasion just to drop off some material for them that I get through some agencies that I have, like some drug information kits and whatnot. And I don't know, sometimes I just pop in just because. That's all. I'm still engaged with all the schools pretty much. But primarily, yeah, my 8 to 4 is at the comp. So
sorry about that. Also, on a different note, I'd like to thank you and the members of your detachment. Thank you for your services. We appreciate your services. You guys put your life on the line, and we thank you. We sincerely thank you, and I hope that you'll pass that on to your members. Also, we'd like to wish you a very blessed Christmas, and hope your staff has the same.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Councillor Schweitzer, do you have any questions or comments, please?
Comment, I'll echo what Councillor Wall said about thanking you very much for your continued service to our community. And COVID has certainly added some degrees of difficulty to different careers, and I can't imagine that it's any different with your team there. In your report, I do want to ask about, and you touched on it, Sergeant Geider, the number of assaults that we've seen in the past year. That number does seem to be trending upward. Are those mostly related to interpersonal violence files? And if so, are your provincial and federal counterparts noticing the same uptick in numbers?
Well, I won't be able to speak to, say, other cities in the province. I haven't ran their stats. I haven't talked to other commanders. But in particular to ours, I would not say that the majority are domestic related. but the percentage, I believe, has gone up a little bit. Sorry, I'm just searching through my documents now because I want to actually report on the 3-month period. So over the 3 months, this year we had 42 investigations with 19 charges laid, and that is all assaults. So 42 and 19. Last year it was 46 and 20. So comparable to last year, we've gone down a little bit again, but when I spoke to some of the domestic files that we've had, I review all of the high risk files, and any domestic file that comes in is reviewed by me or one of the other supervisors. And we have seen an amount that we didn't in months prior, like over the summer, we didn't see many. In the spring, we didn't see many, but now we've seen a handful of that. Of the 42, perhaps between 8 and 10 would have been domestic violence. And it's just not a good number that we don't want to see a rise in that area. I want to mention Councillor Wall, when he was talking to Constable Curdy, Tony kind of left out part of his role as well, in that even though he has a full-time office at the school, Constable Curdy is still a policeman. So if there's any crime that relates to any youth in the community, Tony is called in for that. And he had one particular file this fall that took probably between 50 and 60 hours to investigate. And it was of a sexual assault. And it's not something that we typically report on or talk about. But Tony is a trained child interviewer. He's got a lot of courses and training, a lot of history in deep investigations, very thorough investigations, and we still utilize his services and all of that. I know he's passionate about all of the groups and committees he sits on, but he did fail to, I guess, brag about how passionate he is about making sure that all the kids are safe. Another area that we still utilize Tony, anybody who's met him personally knows he's a huge presence. And at the end of November, we had a search warrant for residents where we actually had 2 different locations we needed to go into. And luckily for us, Tony was available that day. He didn't have anything booked, so we pulled him in and on an entry team. So Tony was on the ram going into one of those houses. So he's able to provide whatever level of service that the community needs. It's just giving lectures in school. He can do anything, and we're really thankful to have him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Schweitzer. Now, Councillor Tantland-Weeb, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have a question. I was just looking at the graph here, and your reportable vehicle accidents are at 914 this year as compared to 121 last year. If I'm reading that right, to what extent do you see the legalization of cannabis contribute to any of these?
Well, that 900, and sorry, I pulled that out as well. That was forwarded before the error was found. 914 should actually be 91.
That's much better.
Yeah. So we did not see a huge spike of 1,000% there. It was actually a little bit of a reduction in compared to years previous.
Okay, so how have you found the legalization of cannabis affect this general area?
It hasn't been significant, at least nothing that we've been able to measure. Our impaired driving still primarily is alcohol related. We do have one charge that's been laid in this 3-month period that was impairment by drug. And for that case, we utilized a drug recognition expert. So it's an officer who's trained to recognize not only that somebody's impaired by a drug, but they can categorize what type of drug. So it's very specific training. And we're lucky that in the area, in Swift Current area, we currently have 3 different drug recognition experts that we can call upon for these files.
Well, that's good to know. I too would like to add my thanks to the detachment and wish you all a very blessed Christmas as well. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. And to you and yours.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tantland-Weeb. I did want to say, officers, I did want to point out the 211. I just received some a couple little short courses, not courses, but video on the one about 2-on-1. I didn't even know it existed. And we're going to have a presentation in early January for all of council. And they did tell me, it was United Way telling me, but they said that all you officers now have that on the back of your cards. So you may hand it out to victims and to people so they can have a place to call if they have issues with all sorts of different things. But it is something that we're looking forward to training, or not training, but letting all of us counselors know about so we can let everybody else know about. So thank you, Sergeant Guider, for letting us know about that tonight. And on one final note here, I'd like to thank you for joining our meetings. And would you please pass along Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all the staff at the detachment. And thanks again for coming in, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Now, moving along into items for action, I will turn to Ms. Cobbler to present the accounts. Ms. Cobbler, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, members of council. Enclosed are the general revenue fund disbursements for the period of November 30th to December 4th, 2020. I respectfully recommend that $1,082,798.79 in disbursements be approved, which includes a payment of $349,000 for payroll benefits, payment of $43,000 for power costs in city facilities outside of our franchise area, a payment of $13,000 for engineering costs associated with the South Hill Water Main Improvement Project, as well as pressure reducing valve replacement. Payment of $13,000 for the purchase of chemicals for use by the water treatment plant. Payment of $164,000 for costs associated with the Patterson sewer line installation. Payment of $57,000 for the supply and installation of a breathing air compressor at the fire hall. A payment of $11,000 for the purchase of an air conditioning refrigerant machine for the service garage. A payment of $23,000 for costs associated with Fairview Arena East Arena upgrade. A payment of $33,000 for costs associated with the fire training grounds. Payment of $23,000 for costs related to snow removal assistance and the November landfill cover material contract. A payment of $22,000 for costs associated with Fairview East Arena upgrade. A payment of $36,000 for landfill operations for the month of November. A payment of $26,000 for costs associated with the utility billing software system. Payment of $24,000 for engineering costs related to the Creek Bank Stabilization Project, Friesen Storm Sewer Rehabilitation, and Leland Bridge Rehabilitation projects. And finally, a payment of $23,000 for the purchase of chemicals for use by the water treatment plant.
Thank you, Ms. Cobbler. Council, I'll be looking for a motion to receive these. Councillor Wall. Could you unmute, please, Councillor Wall?
How's that?
That's good.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move that we approve the disbursements in the sum of $1,082,798.79 for the period of November the 30th to December the 4th, 2020.
Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Christensen.
I will second that motion, Your Worship.
Once again, we're going to move through the list, starting with Councillor Plewis and on down the list. Councillor Plewis, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I think Ms. Cobbler did a good job explaining. Thanks, Your Worship.
Councillor Friesen.
No questions. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Wall.
Yes, I just have one question, not on the amount, but on Southern Star Trucking and Excavating. Is that a local company?
I can answer that one. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Yes, Southern Star is a sort of current-based company.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Schweitzer, any questions or comments?
No, thank you for your report, Ms. Cobbler. All good here.
Councillor Tunlin-Weeb, anything?
Yeah, I have one question that maybe Mitch will want to or might not want to answer is how are we doing on our snow removal budget for 2020?
We're just collecting the final invoices for everyone that's here, and on our contract work, which is really the discretionary spend. We're a little above where we were budgeted, but not anything that will be too concerning. It's normal to have that happen when we have major snow events like this.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Totland-Weeb, and also thank you, Mr. Minkin. And now I do have a few questions, if I could, and Ms. Cobbler, I'm going to address these questions to Mitch again, if he could. And I just would like you, Mr. Minkin, to explain the AECOM Canada for about 13,000. I know it was for engineering with engineering fees for the Windscape irrigation project and South Hill water mains. Could you just let people know a little more about that? Just don't take too long, but just let us know a little more, please.
Sure. So the South Hill Pressure Zone Improvement Project was initiated by concerns from residents regards to water pressure issues in the South Zone. Upon investigation, it was determined that the pressure was low in this area and required upgrades to the system. We were right at the threshold or below, which caused concern for fire as well as normal use. This was a three-phase project. Phase 1 was upgrades to the pumps at the South Hill Reservoir. Phase 2 is the addition of a water main, and Phase 3 is the installation of pressure reducing valve. Phase 1 and 2 are complete now, and Phase 3 is out for tender with a close date at the end of this week. The pressure reducing valve replacement program is to replace those pressure reducing valves that have reached end of life or require major maintenance to ensure they're working properly. We have 5 of these five of these PRVs in our distribution system that will require maintenance over the next few years.
So this 13,000 was just kind of a progress payment to the engineers for all that work, correct?
That's correct. Yes. In the case of the South Hill pressure zone is design and tender work, and in the case of the pressure reducing valves, it's first and foremost to determine whether those valves are needed in the system any longer.
Thank you. And the next question I have is the 164,000 for the Patterson sewer line. And if you could just please let us know what that was for.
Sure. Recently, Patterson Grain has had undertaken an upgrade project to their elevator on the east side of the city, which included a new railway siding. During the beginning of that project, it was identified that there was a conflict with an existing sewer line. The sewer line is operated under the City of Swift Current's permit to operate issued by the Water Security Agency. Since the sewer line is our responsibility, the City of Swift Current worked with Patterson Grain, their construction arm, PTC Construction, and the CPR to develop an acceptable design, secure engineering, and a contractor to perform the work. The cost of this sewer line alteration is the sole responsibility of Patterson Grain. Once all the costs were determined, Patterson Grain prepaid the City of Swift Current for this project, and then the work was performed.
Thank you very much. I was when I seen the name, I assumed that they were responsible, but I just wanted to make sure. Appreciate that. And then my final question on these accounts is to WSP, and it is for $24,000. And it was Leland Bridge rehabilitation, freeze and storm sewer, and then Creek Bank rehabilitation. And I was kind of curious, where is that Creek Bank that you're working on?
Sure. The Creek Bank failure is adjacent to hole number 15 at the Chinook Golf Course. So engineering is required to ensure we meet the conditions of permits that will be required from the Water Security Agency and Fisheries and Oceans Canada. So we're just in that design phase.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minkin. I appreciate that. Now it was moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Christensen. All those in favor? This motion has passed. Next, I will ask Jim Jones, acting CAO, to present the report on council remuneration. Mr. Jones, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. The subject of this report is remuneration for council and meetings policy. A report was brought before council on November 23rd, 2020, recommending administration to proceed with providing public notice indicating council's intention to consider an amendment to the remuneration for council and meetings policy to reflect the modifications that's set out within this report. This process began with advertising as per city's public notice policy bylaw number 1-2003. Soon thereafter, it was recommended that further consideration be given to the initial proposal that outlined the remuneration provided to members of council. The public notice that was originally provided and advertised indicated the following. The mayor's salary will remain at 42% of step 1 of the CAO's salary. Councilor's remuneration will increase from 35 to 42% of the mayor's salary. All claims for meetings and per diems for members of council will be eliminated. This would have essentially kept the remuneration consistent with where it has been over the course of the last term of office while being more efficiently administered. After further analysis and discussion, it is being suggested that a revised public notice be given based on the following. The mayor's salary shall remain at 42% of step 1 of the CAO's salary. Council remuneration will increase from 35 to 38% of the mayor's salary. All claims for meetings and per diems for members of council will be eliminated. There will be no changes to the proposed increase to meeting fees for members of the public that are appointed by the city to sit on various boards and committees, and the recommended increase from $35 per meeting to $50 per meeting will stand. As per the city's public notice policy bylaw number 1-2003, public notice is required when setting remuneration for council and committee members. The additional amendment to the proposed remuneration for council and meetings policy will be brought back to council for review and decision at the January 11th, 2021 regular council meeting. Therefore, it is respectfully recommended that council authorizes administration to proceed with providing public notice indicating council's intention to consider an adjusted amendment to the remuneration for council and meetings policy that reflects the modifications that set out within the report and directs administration to bring this matter back to the January 11th, 2021 regular meeting of council.
I need to unmute myself. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Council, I will be looking for a motion. Councillor Pluis.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I see I just beat Councillor Christensen to the punch here. Maybe he'll be willing to second, but I'll move the recommendation that council authorizes administration to proceed with providing public notice indicating council's intention to consider an adjusted amendment to the remuneration for council and meetings policy to reflect the modifications set out within this report and directs administration to bring this matter back to the January 11th, 2021 regular meeting of council.
And could I have a seconder, please?
I will gladly second that, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. Now we're going to go through this same order and ask for any comments or concerns, starting with Councillor Pluis, please.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. So for those of you who may have been watching our prior meeting, we gave notice of this once already. However, since that time, and as a result of Councillor Christensen's comments at the last meeting, we took the opportunity during a planning session to have a bit more thorough discussion about what our aims were with respect to particularly council and the mayor's remuneration. So kind of two things happening here. One that we did talk about a little bit more as well is that we're actually really the only increase in this at all is for members of the public who sit on different committees or boards that are doing so in service to their community. That amount is going up from $35 to $50 a meeting. Probably time that was dealt with. And then the second part of that, as I said before, deals with remuneration of council and the mayor. And I want to be very clear that there's a decrease at play here, not an increase. So, I think we want to be very clear about the fact that that we don't want people to get tripped up on the fact that council's base remuneration is increasing from 35% to 38% of the mayor's salary. What we had proposed was to go from 35% to 42%, which would have kept it about the same. So if I just look back, because I'm one of the only members of council from the last term, I'm able to actually apply this formula to what my remuneration would have looked like over the course of the last year. And the effect of this is basically that I'm taking a 10% pay cut in being a city councillor, given really solely to the fact that we will have no per diems or meeting fees that we claim for individual meetings. I know for other members of council, if you look at the public of council, if you apply this formula to what other members of council in the last term would have taken home, it's closer to 16% pay reduction. So, really, I think it's fair to say to the public that, council has decided, looking inwards, that we're going to take a pay cut over the next 4 years of between 10 and 16% of what the last council made. The mayor's salary as well is in effect decreasing. The base salary remains the same, but the Mayor Bridle is also taking no per diems or meeting fees. So that whole portion of the remuneration from the last term is disappearing to the effective. And forgive me, I'm not sure exactly what the numbers were, but I believe it's about an $8,000 pay cut in the mayor's role as well. So there are certainly some savings here. I just wanted to be very clear, because I think, when we're talking about increases of percentages that actually result in decreases in remuneration, it's a little bit tough to follow. So I just want to be very clear for those in the public that, we are taking a pay cut in this term. And part of the reason why we're doing that is because there was a feeling among council members that we wanted to not only do what we can to steward public resources as well as we can, but also to be seen to be doing that, because I think it's an important thing from a leadership perspective as well. So sorry to my fellow members of council if I've stolen all of the explanation, but I wanted to be very thorough, just given the fact that I'm the first guy to speak on this here tonight, and certainly others may have more to add as well. But hopefully that's a fair representation of the decision that we made as a group. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. That was a very good explanation. Now, Councillor Friesen, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing to add. Thanks, Your Worship. Councillor Pluis did a good job of explaining. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Christensen.
Councillor Pluis did an excellent job of explaining it. I think year over year, when I was punching the numbers through, I think it works out to about an overall 12% reduction for councillors. So just, again, make sure that's clear, and that's all I have to add.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christensen. Councillor Wall. You're on mute again, Councillor Wall.
How's that? I'd like to thank Councillor Pluis for his excellent explanation, and I agree with this motion. And thanks again, Councillor Pluis.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Councillor Schweitzer, anything?
No, as I've never served on council before, this doesn't really feel like a pay cut to me. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Councillors Pluis and Friesen for stepping up here.
Thank you. Councillor Tumpman-Weeb.
Well, I missed all that because my internet went down, but I'm sure Councillor Pluis was perfect in his explanation, so I agree.
Thank you, Councillor Tumpman-Weeb. He was very good. He explained it very well. Thank you for all your comments. This motion was moved by Councillor Pluis and seconded by Councillor Christensen. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This motion has passed. Thank you. Ms. Cobbler, I will ask that you proceed with the next report regarding municipal revenue sharing declaration of eligibility, which is a very long title, but please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you stated, the subject of this report is Municipal Revenue Sharing Declaration of Eligibility. The Ministry of Government Relations was directed to complete a review of the Municipal Revenue Sharing Grant Program in 2018-2019. One of the main objectives of the review was to provide recommendations on how municipal revenue sharing grants can be used to encourage effective local governance. To support this objective, Government Relations has implemented annual eligibility requirements for municipalities to receive their unconditional municipal revenue sharing grants. Municipalities must report compliance with the eligibility requirements to the Ministry of Government Relations by submitting the Declaration of Eligibility on an annual basis. There are 6 eligibility requirements, which are submission of the audited annual financial statements to the Ministry of Government Relations, submission of the public reporting on municipal waterworks to the Ministry of Government Relations, in good standing with respect to the reporting and remittance of education property taxes, adoption of a council procedures bylaw, adoption of an employee code of conduct, and all members of council have filed and annually updated their public disclosure statements as required. The deadline to submit the annual declaration of eligibility is January 31st of each year. If a municipality does not submit the declaration by the deadline or is not in compliance with one or more of the eligibility requirements, their municipal revenue sharing grant may be withheld until compliance is achieved. The City of Swift Current has met all eligibility requirements, and a council resolution is required to confirm the responses given in the declaration of eligibility. It is therefore respectfully recommended that council confirms the City of Swift Current meets the following eligibility requirements to receive the municipal revenue sharing grant. Submission of the 2019 audited annual financial statements to the Ministry of Government Relations, submission of the 2019 public reporting on municipal waterworks to the Ministry of Government Relations, in good standing with respect to the reporting and remittance of education property taxes, adoption of a council procedures bylaw, adoption of an employee code of conduct, and all members of council have filed and annually updated their public disclosure statements as required, and that council understands that if any requirements are not met, the municipal revenue sharing grant may be withheld until all requirements are met, and that the city clerk be authorized to sign the declaration of eligibility and submit it to the Ministry of Government Relations.
Thank you, Ms. Cobbler. I will be looking for a motion. Councillor Friesen.
Your worship, I'll move that council confirms the City of Swift Current meets the eligibility requirements as outlined to receive the municipal revenue sharing grant, and that council understands that if any requirements are not met, the municipal revenue sharing grant may be withheld until all requirements are met, and the city clerk be authorized to sign the declaration of eligibility and submit it to the Ministry of Government Relations.
And could I please have a seconder? Councillor Wall. Thank you. Now we're going to get into the questions and comments. Councillor Pluis, first, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Ms. Cobbler, for the report. This is something that we're going to see every year as council. It's one of those things where when you're accountable to somebody and you know that you're accountable to somebody, it's kind of different than when you just know what you're supposed to do, but when you have to actually kind of look them in the eye and say, hey, I know what I'm supposed to do here. That's kind of what this report is about. So, you know, for us to be able to be eligible for grant funding or other revenue sharing with the provincial government, we need to look them in the eye and tell them that, hey, we understand what the roles and responsibilities of not only councillors, but also employees of the city and our financial affairs are needing to be kept up to a certain standard. So, you know, really this report's all about ensuring accountability, ensuring transparency, and ensuring good government. And the way that we do that is through all of these sorts of ways, you know, with our audited financial statements, our public reporting, our public disclosure statements for ourselves as councillors, and of course, when we collect revenue on behalf of other levels of government, like the education board, that we also submit those over, as we said we were going to do as well. So like I said, it's about accountability, transparency, and good government. It's a housekeeping item, but one that I believe is a good idea to do. So I'll be happy to support this, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. Councillor Friesen, please.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. Yes, and this is certainly worthwhile doing because I don't know if Ms. Cobbler has the number off the top of her head as to what kind of revenue sharing grants we get, what the number is, but it's hundreds of thousands of maybe millions of dollars, right? So it's something we definitely want to do to keep on the good side of government relations and continue to get those grants. Do you happen to know that number, Ms. Cobbler?
I do. In 2020, our revenue sharing grant was worth $3,348,000.
There we go. Lots of money.
Thank you, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Christensen, any comments or questions?
Nothing more to add, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Wall, anything?
No, thank you, Your Worship. I have also nothing more to add.
Thank you. Councillor Schweitzer, anything?
Nothing to add here. Thank you, Ms. Cobbler, for the report, and Councillors Friesen and Pluis for your explanation.
And finally, Councillor Totland-Weeb, anything more to add?
No, I'm all good here, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you for all your comments from all of council. This motion was moved by Councillor Friesen and seconded by Councillor Wall. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This motion has passed. Thank you. Ms. Cobbler, you're up again. I understand you're going to be presenting the next report as well. Please proceed with the 2021 water treatment chemical tender.
Thank you, Your Worship. Each year, the city tenders the water treatment plant chemical requirements used in the production of potable water. The chemicals are placed into inventory at the time of purchase and expensed when used. An invitation to tender was posted on Sask Tenders for the supply and delivery of the 2021 water treatment chemical requirements. All prices are FOB Swift Current, PST exempt, and GST extra. Attached is a comparison of the water treatment plant chemical costs for 2020 and 2021. Chemical prices are reflective of the market at the time of tender and are subject to fluctuation from year to year. Overall, there is a slight forecasted decrease of $2,317 in water treatment chemical costs in 2021. The tender submissions were reviewed with the water treatment plant superintendent, and the lowest quoted unit price for each chemical meeting the specifications will be recommended for most chemicals. Liquid fluoride is the only exception, since the supplier with the lowest unit price is not able to guarantee timely delivery. As a result, the supplier with the second lowest quoted unit price will be recommended. The financial impact of this decision is minimal, since the unit price difference between the two suppliers is 2 cents per kilogram. It is therefore respectfully recommended that the supply and delivery of the 2021 water treatment chemical requirements to the city's water treatment plant be awarded as follows. Potassium permanganate from ClearTech Industries at a unit price of $4.85 per kilogram. Activated carbon from Brentag Canada with the unit price of $2.22 per kilogram. Liquid fluoride from ClearTech Industries at a unit price of $1.69 per kilogram. Chlorine liquefied gas from ClearTech Industries at a unit price of $1.08 per kilogram. Caustic soda from ClearTech Industries at a unit price of $495.10 per ton. And liquid alum from Chemtrade West at a unit price of $322 per ton.
Thank you, Ms. Cobbler. Council, I will now be looking for a motion. Or not a motion, but a mover, sorry. Someone there? Oh, Councillor Pluis, thank you.
Yeah,
Go
thank
ahead.
you. I'll move Ms. Cobbler's recommendation that the supply and delivery of the 2021 water treatment chemical requirements to the city's water treatment plant be awarded as she described.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. A seconder, Councillor Schweitzer.
I will second, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Council, one more time through the order. Councillor Pluis, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Ms. Cobbler again. It looks like it's your night. I was just wondering, one question here. Obviously, the overall expected, or the forecast of this is actually a decrease in just about $2,300 from 2021 levels. But I didn't see in here anywhere where it actually says what the total is. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind, and I'm sorry for not providing you with notice prior to the meeting. When I read it before, it didn't twig on me till just now. So I wonder if you have that handy, what the total would be for all of these chemicals.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. A comparison of the 2020 to 2021 forecasted costs was included in the package, and I apologize that the report didn't refer to that. A forecast to the end of 2020 is a total cost of $582,278, and a forecasted cost for usage in 2021 is a total of $579,961.
Thanks very much. And yes, I do see that now. So thanks for your explanation.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. Councillor Friesen, do you have any questions or comments?
Thanks, Your Worship. The only thing is it's nice to see the amount going down, even if it's a little bit. That's all I have. Thank you.
So true, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Christensen, anything?
Just a clarification from Ms. Cobbler, if I can. On that comparison chart that you sent us, you have 2020 forecast there. Is that what it actually came in at then? Were those at the actual year, or will be the actual year-end numbers?
The forecast includes our actual usage to the first week of December, and we're forecasting the final three and a half weeks of December. So based on our best estimate, that those numbers will come in very, very close at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Nothing
Christensen.
further, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Wall, do you have any questions or comments?
Thanks for the report, Ms. Cobbler. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schweitzer, anything?
Nothing further from the south side, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tupman-Weeb, do you have any questions or comments?
I just had one question. The fluoride that we put on our water, because this was a question brought up by residents, from my understanding, there's a range of acceptable fluoride put into drinking water, and Swift Currents is actually at the lower end for that. And does every city do that, or is that a decision that Swift Current makes? And I think, Mitch, you can answer that.
Yes, as far as I'm aware, all the cities in Saskatchewan are adding fluoride to the water. The limit that you speak of is set by the Water Security Agency for those people that do add fluoride to their water, and we add just to the minimum amount.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tupman-Weeb. Thank you to all your comments, Council. This motion was moved by Councillor Pluis and seconded by Councillor Schweitzer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This motion has passed. Thank you. Mr. Mencken, I will turn it over to you for the report on the Friesen Street Storm Rehabilitation Project.
Thank you. The City of Swift Currents Servicing Master Plan, supported by follow-up reports, reveals that the current storm sewer main in Friesen Street from 3rd Avenue southeast to Riverside Park is an undersized corrugated steel pipe that has reached the end of its serviceable life. A camera inspection of this area has confirmed that sections of the network have corroded, leaving holes in the bottom of the pipe. Furthermore, the existing storm sewer system is located partially within residential yards, thereby creating a risk for settlements on private property if a failure should occur. Portions of the network are not legally accessible by means of a public utility right-of-way, and in some instances are in proximity of homes and garage pads. A failure in this storm line has potential to impact up to 8 blocks of homes. In 2012, the engineering firm Genovar, now known as WSP, was engaged to design and manage the first phase of this project, which was completed in 2013. This phase included upgrading 160 meters of 900 millimeter CSP storm sewer main to a 1050 millimeter high density polyethylene pipe through the Riverside Park parking lot. And in 2017, WSP finalized the detailed design for the second phase of the project from 3rd Avenue Southeast to tie into Riverside Park. The second phase will encompass the remaining work for this project, which includes replacing approximately 650 meters of existing undersized corrugated steel storm main with a larger PVC piping through the public right-of-way on Friesen Street and 6th Avenue Southeast. Installing 16 new catch basins in intersections, lanes, and mid-block low points. Decommissioning and concreting the old storm main located on private property. And finally, rehabilitating the surface infrastructure impacted by the construction, asphalt, sidewalk, and landscaping repairs. The increased pipe size will improve the drainage in the Friesen Street area, and rerouting the pipe into public road right-of-way will eliminate the risk of pipe failures in private properties and allow access for future repair and maintenance. This project was a successful candidate for the Municipal Economic Enhancement Program, MEEP 2020. The estimated project cost submitted for approval was $2,300,000 with $2,191,467 allocated from MEEP and the remaining $108,533 funded by the City of Swift Current. Expenditures for this project must be completed and submitted by March 31st, 2022. On October 23rd, 2020, WSP publicly posted the Friesen Street Storm Rehabilitation Project to SAS tenders, with a bid period closing on November 20th, 2020. 8 bids were received, ranging from $1,649,466 to $3,494,481.61, PST included, GST excluded. And the lowest bid submission was from KMS Construction Limited of Tuxford, Saskatchewan. WSP, as the engineer of record, has submitted a scope change to their original contract for construction management. Services include full-time on-site resident engineer, project layout, enforcement of design specifications, regulatory compliance, contract management, material testing, quality assurance inspections, and a project closeout report. WSP's proposed fee is $97,948, PST included and GST excluded. The cost of the project includes both the construction and the construction management for a total of $1,747,414, PST included, GST excluded, and this is within the approved 2020 capital budget of $2,300,000, and that the city's original funding allocation of $108,533 will not now be required. Once the project is complete, any remaining MEEP funding can be reallocated to another approved project. It is therefore respectfully recommended that the Friesen Street Storm Rehabilitation construction contract be awarded to KMS Construction Limited of Tuxford, Saskatchewan for a total of $1,649,466, PST included, GST excluded, and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the contract. And that the Friesen Street Storm Rehabilitation Construction Management scope change be approved for WSP of Swift Current, Saskatchewan for a total of $97,948, PST included, GST excluded, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Minkin, for that long report. And you did a great job. Council, we have two motions contained within this report, and I will be looking for the first motion. Could I please have a mover? Councillor Schweitzer.
Your worship, I move that the Friesen Street Storm Rehabilitation Construction Contract be awarded to KMS Construction Limited of Tuxford, Saskatchewan for the amount of $1,649,466, PST included, GST excluded, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Schweitzer. Could we get a seconder, please?
I'll second that, your worship.
Oh,
Great.
thank you. Well, we're going to use Councillor Wall there. Thank you very much as a seconder. Now, one more time to questions. Councillor Pluis, would you proceed with any questions or comments on this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So this is an interesting report. First of all, I just want to say we're very fortunate to have received MEEP funding for this project. It saves the residents of the city of Swift Current about $2.3 million. So that's certainly a very nice thing to have received when you're on city council and sitting around a budget table. It makes these decisions a little bit easier. But certainly, this is a project that needs to get done. As the report says, we've got infrastructure in the ground that's about 60 years old. We know that it's deteriorated to the point where it's causing threat to both public and private property. And we have grant funding available to us right now to do it. So, certainly there's lots of check marks here. Some of the questions that I had provided to admin prior to the meeting have all been answered, but I still think it's useful for the public to know what some of those questions were in case they also may have the same thoughts and listening to those things. So maybe what I'll do is without asking Mr. Minkin to re-answer them, I'll just sort of say what my thoughts were and how they were answered. So when we're talking about decommissioning the concrete and concreting old storm mains, because some of this utility or these pipes go underneath private property, it would be a bit of a mess to dig everything up and simply put new pipe in the ground. That's also not a great idea to cross private property, obviously, with public utilities. And the explanation given to me at the time was that they did look at the records to see why the decision was made 60 years ago to route the pipeline this way, and there's really no good reason that can be found. And so it's a grand mystery, but what's not a mystery is that we need to do something different now, which is what this report's about. So what we're going to do to decommission those old lines is put basically a slurry, a sort of a loose concrete into those pipes to make sure that they totally fill and don't have the chance to fill up with water or anything else. The trouble with pipes when they fail on the bottom is that they can create sinkholes, and we may have all seen that in the news over the course of the last few years and very recently as well, again, in some other municipalities. So that's the benefit of doing the work to find these sorts of issues, is that you probably save yourself a lot of money down the road when you discover some of these things before they're a disaster. So yeah, we're going to reroute this, just to be clear, entirely on public property. We won't be going under private property anymore, but we will cap those lines to make sure that they aren't a risk to private property. I also did ask if we had this situation anywhere else in the city where we have public lines going underneath private property. And it does not sound like, to the best of anybody's knowledge, that we have this issue in other places. So again, just to recap, I want to say we're very fortunate that we have the MEEP funding for this project. Certainly, it's a worthy project where we're replacing infrastructure that's 60 plus years old. And my only question that's remaining is I don't really understand the scope change for the engineering. I know it was originally quoted back in 2012 when WSP was actually a firm named Genovar. But I noticed that there is a scope change that involves some cash, and I just would feel better if I understood that. So I wonder if I could ask Mr. Minkin to provide a bit more on that point.
Sure. So the original approved work to this point was for the design, for the completion of the design work, and for the tendering services. So that is the end of the engagement we have with WSP at this point. So this scope change is for the addition of the construction management services and testing and quality assurance services. So this is additional funding to pay for those services.
Okay, thanks. And just to reiterate that's still underneath the budget of what we had initially approved for the 2020 budget as part of the last council as well. So sounds like a good plan. I'll be in favor. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. I do hate to bust anybody's bubbles at administration, but I happen to know one on the west end that we took over from the RM, that a storm sewer that's on private land. It happens to be on my land. So, so it'll be something that we'll be likely digging up or putting slurry in at some time in the future, but we'll worry about that when that happens. Right now, it's working well. Anyway, Councillor Friesen, do you have anything more to add?
Well, not a whole lot, Your Worship. I guess this project and I share a name, and we're about the same age, I noticed. So it looked to me like this was probably long overdue. When I read the line that said a failure of this storm line has potential to impact up to 8 blocks of homes, I guess that's what solidified it for me to think that we better get this taken care of. If the pipes are in that bad a condition, we better get them fixed and make sure everything's working smoothly. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Friesen. It is good to note that you look in far better shape than Mr. Mencken mentioned those pipes looked in. So for the age that you said you were, thank you very much. Councillor Christensen, any comments or concerns?
No, I'll just add to what Ryan said. I had shared many of his questions, and with the supplemental information that administration provided today with the answers, kind of answered all my questions. So I will be in favor of this as well. That's everything, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christensen. Councillor Wall, any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a couple of questions here to Mr. Mencken. KMS Construction, is he going to be using any local contractors?
Yes, the subcontract for pavement and concrete services is to the local paving contractor that we normally use here in town. So the pavement and concrete is subcontracted to a local company.
Okay, the next one is we've been listening to hiring engineers quite often today. If we had our own local engineer, could that have saved us some money from all these engineering costs?
A good portion of this is money that we would spend anyway. About I believe it's about $28,000 is for testing and quality assurance. So that would be money that we would have to spend anyway. The rest is for the construction services. So if we had if we had an engineer on staff, they may be able to do some of those services. But I guess we're certainly hiring the experts in this type of work to assist us.
The next one was MEEP. It sounds like something like the Roadrunner show. I would like council to know that this isn't free money. Saskatchewan taxpayer has to pay for some of this money. So it's not free money. So we should make sure we know that. Somebody has to pay for this, and it's in our benefit that we do, but just to let you know, it's not free money. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Councillor Schweitzer, do you have anything more to add or questions?
Not much more to add, Your Worship. Just this isn't the splashiest or the prettiest project, but it's certainly a necessary one, and it's certainly nice to see some of those provincial tax dollars make their way back to Swift Current for something like this. So thank you very much for your report, Mr. Mencken.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schweitzer. Councillor Tuntman-Weeb, any questions or concerns, comments?
I'm glad to see that this is moving ahead as soon as it is. It was an issue I heard a lot about during the campaign. So residents are going to be very happy that Friesen Street's going to be taken care of. And my only other concern was KMS Construction is not a local company. Is it a company the city has used before? And are they going to get the job done to our satisfaction?
Yes, KMS has done numerous projects here for us in Swift Current. They were involved in some of the work in the Highland subdivision a number of years ago, and in the Springs area construction, and recently a little over a year ago, they delivered the South Monroe Industrial project for us. So they're well known to us here in Swift Current, and have performed well on those previous projects.
Just as a note of mention, I live in the Highland area, and there has been several projects that have had to be redone concerning water up here, and it's a new area. We were surprised that there was additional work that had to be done because of leaks.
Thank you, Councillor Tunton-Weeb. Anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Minkin, for all your answers, and thank you for your comments and questions, Council. This motion was moved by Councillor Schweitzer and seconded by Councillor Wall. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. This motion has passed. Now we'll be looking for a second motion. Could I please have a mover? Councillor Wall?
And I can second that, Your Worship.
Councillor Wall, could you come off mute, please?
Sorry about that, Your Worship. I move that the Friesen Street Storm Rehabilitation Construction Management Scope Change be approved for WSP of Swift Current, Saskatchewan for a total amount of $97,948, PST included, but GST is excluded, and that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Could I then have a seconder?
I'd be happy to second that, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. I know we've had quite a bit of discussion on this already, but we will go through the order one more time. If you just want to nod your head if you're good with it, or just anyway, let's go through. Councillor Pluis first, please.
Yeah, nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Friesen?
Nothing further, thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Christensen?
Nothing further, Your Worship.
Councillor Wall? Thank you. With your lip reading, it says nothing further. Councillor Schweitzer? Thank you, Councillor Schweitzer. Councillor Tunton-Weeb? Thank you very much. Thank you for all your non-comments on this one. This motion was moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Pluis. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This motion has passed. Thank you. Mr. Minkin, you're up one more time. Your next report, please.
Thank you. This report deals with the Swift Current regional transportation study. Over the past couple of years, the Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure has been engaging municipalities in joint regional transportation planning studies. The regional plans are often focused on the boundary area around urban centers, since that is where the provincial, city, rural municipal road networks interact. They are typically high-level studies that include highways, key city arterial roads, and key municipal roads. The ministry has recently completed planning efforts in Weyburn and Yorkton. The planning studies resulted in a long-term regional transportation plan that was supported by the cities, surrounding rural municipalities, and the Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure. The ministry is prioritizing the next few studies and has reached out to the City of Swift Current and the RM of Swift Current number 137 as one of their priorities. The regional transportation plan will be led by the ministry, and a few key items that the city has expressed to the ministry to include in the study are the review of the Trans-Canada Highway off-ramps to the service roads, feasibility for an additional overpass, and pedestrian access along the service roads. These studies provide a good base plan for the future and are key in regional cooperation. The ministry has stated that these documents have become their go-to documents for future improvements in the areas that serve the provincial, urban municipality, and the rural municipality. The ministry offers 50% funding, with the remaining 50% to be shared between the participating municipalities. From the ministry's past planning studies, the rural municipalities' contribution is typically in the 10% range, and the city administration has discussed the potential agreement with the RM of Swift Current number 137, and they are willing to commit 10% to move this planning effort forward. The estimate that the ministry has provided for this planning study is in the range of $100,000 to $120,000. The city portion would be within $40,000 to $50,000 and can be funded through remaining capital budget from the Chaplin Street Bridge Rehabilitation Project. Therefore, the proposed funding agreement would include 50% contribution from the Ministry of Highways, 40% from the City of Swift Current, and 10% from the RM of Swift Current number 137. If the city chooses not to move forward, the ministry will be offering the planning efforts to the next municipality on their priority list. It is therefore respectfully recommended that council approve the Regional Transportation Study Project in the 2020 capital budget to be funded by surplus funds from the 2020 Chaplin Street Bridge Rehabilitation Project to a maximum of $50,000, and the council approve entering into agreement with the Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure and the rural municipality of Swift Current number 137 to complete the Swift Current Regional Transportation Study, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Minkin, for your report. Council, again, there are two motions contained within this report. I will be looking for a first motion. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Friesen.
Your worship, I'll move that council approve the Regional Transportation Study Project in the 2020 capital budget to be funded by the surplus funds from the 2020 Chaplin Street Rehabilitation Project to a maximum of $50,000.
And a seconder, I seen Councillor Christensen had his hand up.
I will second that motion, your worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christensen. Now, one more time, questions and comments, starting with you, Councillor Pluis, please.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. Interesting report again. At the end of the day, I think I can get behind this project because I think it paves the way, no pun intended, to hopefully getting some future projects revenue shared within our community as well. And these are all projects, of course, that matter to not only the residents of the city of Swift Current, but throughout our entire community, which of course involves those folks in the RM right around us as well. So I'm happy to see both municipalities participating in this report. I think, you know, it's good. It makes total sense, and we should have some cost sharing there. So I want to thank our friends in the RM for being a part of this. And I'm also happy to see that we're able to make this project work with funds that had already been budgeted in 2020, so that we don't need to go back to budget again and try to find these funds. That's not to say they're free, as Councillor Wall mentioned before. They still come out of tax dollars. But again, it's one of those things that we were able to find some savings in other areas to be able to expand the pie a little bit by making this report happen, and hopefully having that report lead to some real benefits for our community as well. Thanks, your worship. That's it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pluis. Councillor Friesen, any questions or comments?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. First of all, I'm very happy to see that this study will include a review of the off-ramps, the additional overpass, and pedestrian access along the service roads. I think those are three very important projects that many residents have expressed concern and questions over. So I'm glad to see that this would be part of it. I guess my question is, how far does this study take us? Mr. Minkin, like, is it, does it just make recommendations, or like, I just was curious how far down the road we would get with this.
I don't think I could give you a firm answer on that. However, this from the information that we received from the ministry, they are reviewing the Urban Highway Connector Program, which applies to us here, and that these studies will define projects within that program, and without having these plans, it may delay some of those projects from being completed.
Thank you, Mr. Mankin, and thank you, Councillor Friesen. On to Councillor Christensen. Do you have any questions or comments?
One clarification for Mr. Minkin. I noticed we were going to pay for this from the surplus from the Chaplain Street Bridge. Now we still have a little bit of paving to do there, a couple lifts or something. Now this is surplus after that amount is accounted for?
That is correct. We have allocated the money and have the quotes in place for the paving. So this money will be excess after the paving has been completed.
Thank you, Mitch. Nothing further, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christensen and Mr. Minkin again. Councillor Wall, any questions or comments?
Councillor Christensen kind of stole my question, so I'm okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Schweitzer, anything?
My questions have also been stolen, Your Worship. Nothing further here.
Yeah, it's tough when you're down the list there, isn't it? Thank you very much, Councillor Schweitzer. Councillor Tuttlin-Weeb, anything?
Well, that makes it good to go for me too.
Thank you very much. I did have a couple of questions, Mr. Minkin. When they're studying, the off ramps and stuff, has there been any thought in this to like the speed limit along number 1 highway? Because that's always been, it's been a concern for many citizens here. Why it has to be 100 when other cities get 80, where these highways go through the city. So would that be part of this study, or could it be part of this study?
Absolutely, it could be. The parameters on the study and the items within the study are negotiable at this point through the development of the final agreement. So anything that would be of interest to council would certainly be able to be included.
I would just think that the speed limit might be of interest to both ourselves and the arm of Swift Current, as far as, people talk about when you slow down, you might as well get gas anywhere or pick up a burger. No, seriously. So it's one of those things that I would definitely be interested in. And the second thing, Mr. Minkin, I know you've said it already, but we get so many studies done, and lots of these studies, they sit on a shelf and collect dust. This particular one, Department of Highways has basically said if we don't do it, if there is some projects in the future, they will take this study and look at our projects. If we do not do this study, they may just leave our projects and not even bother looking at them. Is that correct?
That is the information that we got, yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, thanks to all the council for your comments. Now, this motion was moved by Councillor Friesen and seconded by Councillor Christensen. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. This council has passed, or this motion has passed. Council will be looking for a second motion. Could I have a mover? Councillor Pluis, yes, Councillor Pluis.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to move the council approve entering into an agreement between the Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure and the rural municipality of Swift Current number 137 to complete the Swift Current Regional Transportation Study, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the agreement.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pluis, for that. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tutman-Weeb,
I'll second that.
thank you very much. Now, one more time into a round of questions. Do we have any more on this one? Councillor Pluis first. No, thank you. Councillor Friesen?
All good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Christensen? Nothing. Councillor Wall? Thank you very much. Councillor Schweitzer? Thank you. And Councillor Tutman-Weeb? Thank you very much. This motion was moved by Councillor Pluis and seconded by Councillor Tutman-Weeb. All those in favor, please raise your hand. This motion has passed. Thank you. Next, I'm going to be moving along, and it is now time to turn this over to the city clerk to present the next 4 reports. This is a lot of reports tonight from everybody. So city clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. The subject of this report is council appointments to boards and committees. With the recent municipal election, it is now necessary to appoint council members to various boards and committees for the remainder of this year to and including 2021. The appointments for members of the public will be brought forth in a separate report. It is therefore respectfully recommended that the following appointments be made effective immediately to December 31st, 2022, and unless otherwise stated. Agriculture and Exhibition Association, Councillor Christensen. Chamber of Commerce, Councillor Friesen. Compliance Committee, which is our Code of Ethics Bylaw number 5 of 2017. Mayor Bridle, Councillor Pluis, and Councillor Christensen. Comprehensive Community Swift Current Inc., otherwise known as Riverview Village Estates, Councillor Wall. Drug Strategy Action Committee, Councillor Schweitzer. Elmwood Golf Course, Councillor Pluis. Living Sky Community Development Corporation Board, Mayor Bridle and Marty Solberg. Murals and Advisory Board, Councillor Wall and Councillor Schweitzer. Newcomer Welcome Center, Councillor Tutman-Weeb. Public Library, Councillor Schweitzer, who will also serve on the Chinook Regional Library Board. The RCMP Advisory Committee of Councillor Pluis. Chinook Power Negotiations, Mayor Bridle and Councillor Pluis. Southwest Multicultural Association Truth and Reconciliation Planning Committee, Councillor Tutman-Weeb. Southwest Municipal Government Committee, Councillor Friesen. Stream Stewardship, Councillor Friesen. Streets Facility Naming Advisory Board, Councillor Tutman-Weeb and Councillor Schweitzer. Swift Current Broncos, Councillor Friesen. Tourism, Councillor Tutman-Weeb. The appointment of Deputy Mayor will be split each 2-month period, starting in January with Councillor Tutman-Weeb for January, February. Councillor Pluis will sit March and April. Councillor Friesen will sit May and June. Councillor Christensen will sit July and August. Councillor Wall, September and October, and Councillor Schweitzer, November and December of each year.
Thank you, Ms. Slamp. Council, I would be looking for a motion on this. Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Worship. I move that we accept the recommendation for the council appointments to boards and committees as presented.
Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor
I'll
Friesen.
second that, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Now, one more time through the list here, Councillor Pluis, do you have any comments?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Friesen? Nothing? Councillor Christensen?
Nothing to add.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wall? Thank you. Councillor Schweitzer, anything? Thank you for the thumbs up. And Councillor Tutman-Weeb? Thank you. This was, I'll make a few comments on this. There's quite a few different committees that all of council sits on and very varied interests. We did talk to all of council and see what their interests were and tried to appoint all of council to the committees they're interested in. A few people got some that they weren't quite as interested in, but I do appreciate all of council for stepping up and taking on or saying that you take on these responsibilities. Thank you very much. Now, this motion was moved by Councillor Christensen and it was seconded by Councillor Friesen. All those in favor, please raise your hand. This motion has passed. Thank you. Ms. Slamp, up for a second report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. The subject of this report is the public appointments to boards and committees. Each year, appointments are made for members of the public to various boards and committees where vacancies occur as a result of completion of term or resignation. Most appointments are for a 2-year term. Appointments for the local library board are to be done on an annual basis pursuant to Section 39 of the Public Libraries Act 1996 and Section 15 of the Public Libraries Regulations 1996. Advertisements were placed in the local newspaper throughout the month of November, as well as on the city's website, inviting the public to submit their names for vacancies. Board members whose terms were set to expire also had the opportunity to reapply to be reappointed. It is therefore respectfully recommended that the following appointments to the boards and committees be approved. To the Board of Revision, Samantha Parsons, Adam Chrysler, Ken Lindsley, Tammy Croker, Desiree Unvoss, Jackie Schlamp as secretary, Kelly Elliott as alternate secretary, to the completion of the 2022 appeals. To the Development Appeals Board, Samantha Parson, Tammy Croker, Ian McGregor, Chris Gardner, Ken Lindsley, to the completion of 2022 appeals. To the Lac Pelche Regional Park Authority, Garth Melhoff and Harley Hansen, to December 31st of 2021. The Murals and Advisory Board, Brandon Weeb, Lon Wilby, Desiree Unvoss, from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. To the Public Library Board, Peggy Drinkle, Colleen Penner, Ann Stewartson, Larry Kelo, Rhonda Forrester, Sharon Utek, Courtney Stewart, Tanya Sauk, Catherine Bristow, and Desiree Unvoss, from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. To the Recreation and Parks Board, Ed Lister, Harv Martinez, Alexander Slavin, Ian McGregor, from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. And to the Streets Facility Naming Advisory Board, Chris Gardner and Ian McGregor, from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Slamp. I appreciate that. Council, I would be looking for a motion. Could I please have a mover? Councillor Schweitzer, thank you very much.
Yeah, Your Worship, I move that we accept the recommendation as set out in the report presented by the city clerk.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wall. Councillor, do you have any questions or comments about this list? Councillor Pluis first, please.
No questions really, Your Worship. Just want to pass on council's thanks to all these folks who put their hands up and chose to serve their community. In particular, I noticed that there are several candidates from the last election, the last municipal election, that have put their names forward to continue to serve their community in a different capacity. So I want to in particularly say thanks to those folks. And, you know, we owe a lot to these people who continue to keep these committees rolling. You know, it's not just something that is nice for us, it's something that's necessary for a community to have these things. So we owe these people a debt of gratitude as well as a new check for $50 every meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Pluis. Councillor Friesen?
Nothing to add. My thanks as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Christensen, anything?
Just a sincere thank you for their stepping forward. That's it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wall, anything?
Yes, also thanks to the community that's pitching in again. We have a wonderful community that does a lot of volunteering.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wall. Councillor Schweitzer, anything?
I'll echo the sentiments of the councillors previous in just saying that this is a solid roster of good community-minded people.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tunlin-Weeb, anything?
Last echo from me, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tunlin-Weeb, and myself too. I would like to say, when I look down this list, there's many community-minded people on this list. We see them on these boards. We see them actively involved in many areas of our city. So I would again, or with all of council, like to say thank you for serving and for letting your name serving on these boards, because it's not a high-paid job. It's a community. It's because you love your community, not because you're going to make great bucks doing it. So thank you very much. Now, that all being said, this motion was moved by Councillor Schweitzer and seconded by Councillor Wall. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. This motion has passed. Ms. Slamp, please proceed with your third report, I believe.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. The subject of this report is the appointment of an acting city clerk. Section 85(1) of the Cities Acts indicates that every council shall appoint a person as city clerk. There are times during the year when the city clerk will be away from the office, and during these times, it is necessary to have an employee appointed as acting city clerk in order that the regular business of the city can continue in a seamless fashion. Kelly Elliott, our administrative assistant, has been employed by the city for nearly 4 years and was appointed as acting city clerk in February of 2020 until December 31st, 2020, and it is being recommended that her appointment continue. It is therefore respectfully recommended that Kelly Elliott be appointed to act as city clerk during the absence of the regular city clerk, effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Slamp, for that report. Council, I will be looking for a motion. Could I please have a mover? Councillor Pluis, I seen you first.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to move that Kelly Elliott be appointed to act as city clerk during any absence of the regular city clerk, effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2021.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pluis. Could I have a seconder?
I will second, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schweitzer. Now, Councillor Pluis, do you have any comments on this?
No, other than just to say this is one of those reports that comes every year. It's an annual thing that we need to do, and it's basically a bookkeeping thing, but I have every confidence in Miss Elliott. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Friesen?
Much the same. I'm glad we have someone such as Kelly in the organization that has the skills necessary to take over if it should be required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Christensen?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wall?
Also nothing to add, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Schweitzer?
Nothing to add, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Tuntland-Weed?
I think that means Jackie's allowed to have holidays during the year.
You think that should be allowed? I'm not sure. She's been such a big help to me here. Well, thank you for all your comments, Councillor. This motion was moved by Councillor Pluis and seconded by Councillor Schweitzer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This motion has passed. And finally, Ms. Slamp, your final report. I think you have the record tonight with 4. So go ahead with it, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. The subject of this report is the cancellation of council meeting. In preparation of the December council schedule, it has been noted that council's final meeting for 2020 is scheduled for Monday, December 28th. It is being recommended that this meeting be canceled, as historically the time period between Christmas and New Year's is relatively quiet. Taking into consideration above, if necessary, a special council meeting can be called to address any time-sensitive matters. It is therefore respectfully recommended that the council meeting of December 28th, 2020 be canceled.
Thank you, Ms. Slamp. I will be looking for a motion, Council. Could I have a mover on this one? Council Wall?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the council meeting of December the 28th, 2020 be canceled.
And a seconder?
I will second that, Your Worship.
We got a bunch of hands up there. Tuntland-Weeb came to, Councillor Tuntland-Weeb was first in my view here. So you're it on the seconder, Councillor Weeb or Tuntland-Weeb. Anyway, any comments, Councillor Pluis?
No, once again, this is something that is often done by City Council. It is traditionally pretty quiet over the Christmas season in terms of reports that need to come, and gives us a little break for the Christmas holidays as well. So, of course, noting definitely that we can be called back if there's anything that needs to happen over that course of time. So given that, that being the case, I'm certainly comfortable to cancel that meeting on the 28th, and I'll be in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pluis. Councillor Friesen?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Christensen?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Wall?
Nothing to add.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wall. Councillor Schweitzer, anything?
Nothing to add, just a cancellation is a fitting way to end 2020, Your Worship.
No kidding. I wish we could cancel the whole year, but with this COVID. Councillor Tutman-Weeb, please, anything?
I agree. That was a good one.
Anyway, this motion has been moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Tutman-Weeb. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. This motion has passed. Moving down the agenda, there are no reports for information or current bylaws or any items under unfinished business. This brings us to new business, council. I would be looking for a motion to receive and file the following information. Swift Current Library Branch Board Agenda of December 2nd, 2020. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Pluis.
Thank you, Worship. I move that we receive and file those documents.
A seconder.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Councillor Friesen, thank you very much. Any questions, starting with Councillor Pluis?
Nope, nothing for me there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Friesen.
All good, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Wall.
All good.
Thank you, Councillor Schweitzer.
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
And finally, Councillor Tutman-Weeb. Do you feel lonely at the end or not? No? Okay, thank you very much. This motion was moved by Councillor Pluis and seconded by Councillor Friesen. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. This motion has passed. Now, there are no items listed under communications or requests for in camera, and therefore we'll continue with reports of council members. I will open the floor to council for questions or comments for administration or statements they wish to make, starting again with Councillor Pluis, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks to admin for all the reports tonight. Very much appreciate it. And thanks to Mayor Bridle for running an efficient meeting. We appreciate that as well. A couple of things that I wanted to mention. This is our last meeting of the year, so we won't get a chance to do the holiday merry and wishes for everybody. So I'll leave that for the very end. But I wanted to start with the reduction that members of the community who receive their power from City Light and Power, they will be receiving that same 10% reduction that Sask Power is providing to members of the community as well. So if you recall, the provincial government made that announcement as part of their election platform, and of course, being elected, have kept that promise. So for that period, December 1st of this year till November 30th of next year, there will be a 10% reduction in power bills, which members of or people in the community who receive power from Light and Power will also receive. So I know there have been some questions, there's some confusion on that, and wanted to be very clear that the same rate will be given. Also, lots of charity things happening in our community right now, in particular for the Christmas season. We know there's always a bit of an elevated need. And I think it's being compounded by the fact that we have more need this year with less people feeling comfortable going out and helping with things. And so I want to say thanks to all the volunteers in our community. You know, it's been a tough year, but you know what? We've had a pretty darn good year living in Canada, living in Saskatchewan, and living in Swift Current. You know, we have to keep things in perspective at all the time, where you don't have to look very far to find somebody who's in worse shape than yourself. And you know, I feel fortunate to live in this community. I feel fortunate to be a member of City Council in this community. I want to say thanks to everybody for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. But I also want to say thanks to all the volunteers who make all of the things that we do possible. And you know, there is still some need in our community. I saw just today that the Salvation Army and Councillor Tutman-Weeb actually had mentioned this as well on social media, that they're looking for more volunteers to serve at the kettles. That's a very important part of their fundraising for the year. It funds a lot of their operations. And if you could find it in yourself to give a little bit of time to sit there and ring the bell and man the kettle, I know that they would very much appreciate it, and the community would be even better place as a result of your service. So if that's something you think you can do, please contact Arlene at 741-9519. I also mentioned, Your Worship, that you know, for some folks this has been a pretty tough year, and I'm not just talking about you know, the fact that we have to stay home and can't see our friends and family. It's you know, it's all of the extensions of that. You know, it's the stresses that we feel in our businesses. It's the stresses that we feel whether not knowing whether we're going to have a job to go to or not. It's the stresses that we feel on reduced budgets when maybe we're receiving government support when we're not used to having to do that. So there's lots of things that are different this year, and different, of course, can be a stressful thing. And I just wanted to mention again that 211 service, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, Your Worship, and I'm glad that they're going to come and talk to us a little bit more about that, because like you, it's not something that I was very familiar with until the last couple of days. But I just, for the benefit of folks in the community, you know, if you're feeling that extra stress right now, you know, whether it's, you know, addiction or, you know, mental health counseling, whether you're experiencing interpersonal violence in your relationships, the government has put in place this 211 number, and it's funded, I think, largely by the provincial government, but serviced by lots of different organizations depending on what the need is. And basically what they can do is they can talk to you, and they can give you referrals to the right people that you can talk to help with the particular stresses that you're feeling. So it's a really great way to just hop on quickly, get really immediate access to some help if you're feeling that. And I know the holiday season can be an extra stressful time for people as well. So I thought it was a very timely thing that we could talk about 211 and some of the benefits as well here tonight. Just wanted to pass a bouquet on to a member of our community who's done something pretty interesting. As I mentioned, you know, people are feeling certainly that this year's a little different. And I just want to say thanks to Dylan Curry, a local musician who created a song called Staying Home This Christmas, which is, I think he refers to it as a pandemic-inspired Christmas song. But a local guy whose song will be available starting this Wednesday on Spotify and Apple Music and all the streaming services. So I'm waiting patiently for Wednesday to go and check that out. But just a local guy who's doing something kind of fun and something pretty neat. So I wanted to mention it as well here. And of course, again, I'm sorry to all my fellow councillors for probably stealing all of the things that they wanted to say, or some of the things that they wanted to say as well. And I know this will certainly be one of them that, just on behalf of council, I wanted to wish the community a very Merry Christmas. You know, it's a time for family and friends and faith. And I hope that whatever that faith is in your life, you celebrate it and you take the time to spend time with those folks who mean something more to you than the average person. So just a Merry Christmas to everybody in the community and a very Happy New Year. I'll see you in January.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pluis. You brought up many good points there. I appreciate that. Councillor Friesen, do you have anything you wish to add or say?
I just wanted to mention one thing, and that is the Swift Current Broncos, the Harvest Lottery that they're involved in. It's a 50-50 draw, and it's all the Saskatchewan WHL teams that are putting this on. There's 5 teams. And right now the pot is sitting at over $275,000. So it's well worth taking a look at. You can Google it at WHL Harvest Lottery, or go to the Swift Current Broncos and you can find information there. Deadline to purchase tickets is December 20th. And I'm thinking that jackpot will grow quite a bit between now and then. So it might be a good idea to get a ticket. The only other thing I have is just a Merry Christmas. Very sincere thanks and appreciation to our community for everything that they've done this year. And I look forward to working with everyone in 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Christensen, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I'll just add to what Ryan and Pat have said. A very special thank you to our citizens for all the work that they've done and pitching in to make this community as great as it is. On a personal level, I'd like to really thank administration for making the transition to council so easy. And that, of course, that extends to Councillor Pluis and Councillor Friesen as well. I think they've done wonderful job of introducing us and getting us involved. And other than that, just a very Merry Christmas to everyone. And I hope everyone has a great, great Christmas season.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christensen. Councillor Wall?
Yes, I will echo the comments by Councillor Christensen. I too would like to wish everybody a very Merry, blessed Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wall. Councillor Schweitzer?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just want to give a shout out to a lot of our area families who have had to deal with multiple COVID isolations over the past few weeks. You've been hearing stories about multiple child families when one kid gets out of their 2-week isolation, another one goes right back in because there was contact tracing amongst the class. So I just want to thank residents for all of their patience this year. COVID has been tough on all of us, and here's to a bright and better 2021.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schweitzer. Councillor Tunton-Weeb?
You saved the best for last, right?
Of course I did. Of course I did. You guessed it.
Thank you, Mayor Bridle, for the opportunity to share some thoughts at our last council meeting before Christmas. And Ryan, you didn't touch on everything, so I do have a little bit to say. I would like to make mention of just a few Spirit of Christmas events that we've seen happening in our community. The Festival of Minis is still going on at the Swift Current Museum until Wednesday. The admission is free and you have the opportunity to buy tickets on your favorite trees or wreaths. They only cost you $1 a ticket. The event is a fundraiser for various organizations in the community. I've seen and heard a lot of comments about how happy people were to see the horse-drawn wagon rides going around town. Urban Ground had organized that event. Garden of Eden did the same type of event out in their area. We've seen tremendous generosity from our Hutterite colonies with their donations to the Salvation Army. As Ryan mentioned, I've been in touch with the Salvation Army today. They had 50 to 60 shifts that needed covering. As of this morning, a few have been filled now with the call out that we've made on social media. You can also call me at 778-3042 and I'll get you hooked up with a shift or two. The Canadian Tire Drive for Toys was a huge success. All the wishes were picked from the wish tree that the Salvation Army had at the mall. The Adopt a Senior for Christmas program that Kathy Jennings organized had 566 seniors sign up, and there was tons and tons of gifts donated to that beyond what individuals had picked up to give to the seniors. Our community came through yet again to provide gifts where most needed, and all the volunteers needed to pull it off. And just today, the All Saints Catholic School delivered Secret Santa gifts to the Canadian Mental Health Association, and there was big boxes and bags left outside their doors. There have been so many events canceled due to COVID-19, but others popped up to shine their light this year. I'm just so proud to be a citizen of this community where the Christmas spirit of giving is so apparent. Thank you again to the whole community, the volunteers, and I wish everyone a very blessed Christmas.
Thank you, Councillor Tunton-Weeb. I just have a few comments. Everybody's touched on so many things. I am so proud to be a member of Swift Current. When I listen to all the things that all the councillors have listed here, and there's other things too, we just can't touch on them all. But it's so good to see our community coming together, especially with COVID-19, with our restrictions for Christmas. People are figuring out how they're going to do things with family and with friends and do it via Zoom like we're doing this meeting, do it with phone calls. One family said they're going to make a great big Christmas dinner and they're going to deliver it to all their children and just kind of ring the doorbell, set it on the doorstep. So there's many novel ways to celebrate Christmas. And anyway, I do want to wish all of you, Council, a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday here, as well as all the city employees, our senior admin and all the employees. I want to say Merry Christmas from myself and Council. I know Council's already said it, but I want to say that one more time. And then last but not least, I want to wish you, our citizens, a Merry Christmas, and may you have a happy and safe holiday season here. Thank you very much. Now, this concludes our council meeting for the 14th day of December 2020. I will be looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Nobody wants to adjourn it?
I'll take it, your worship.
I can move.
Ryan or Councillor Schweitzer was first up there, or the first one that came on my screen here. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'd be happy to second that, your worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pluis. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Merry Christmas. Appreciate that.